Welcome to this week's edition of the Construction CPA's Coffee Cafe. I am the Construction CPA, Lisa Raish. We are dropping the hammer on cash flow problems so you can build things that matter. So this week's topic is we're going to be talking about why progress and milestone billing matters in your business. So we see it all the time with our clients and then prospects that we talk to. Have you ever finished or gotten halfway through one of your jobs? You spent most of the money and you still haven't been paid yet, right? It's a chronic problem across all of construction. We see it, it doesn't really matter what type of construction you're doing. It's sadly, it's a really big problem across the entire industry. So what I want to talk about today is we're going to kind of break down what we call progress billing or milestone billing or versus milestone billing, right? Different kind of what works, what doesn't work, that kind of a thing, and really to see what makes sense in your particular business anyways. And you want to make sure you choose the one that makes the most sense for you because it's going to ultimately affect your cash flow. All right, so why does this matter? So when we really look at the progress billing and the milestone billing, what you want to see is how much you are billing, not as much as it's not as much as you're billing, but it's how often you're billing, right? You want to look at things like that, and that's important. The structure of your billing. Does it directly affect your cash flow, right? Does it create stress in your business? Do you have the ability to actually fund your jobs the way that you're currently billing out? If you've chosen a billing method that doesn't make sense, it can actually cause cash gaps in your business and then ultimately put, stress on various pieces, maybe making some of the projects unprofitable. So again, what works best for you? And then you just want to understand what the difference is between the two, and so that you can stop slow pays. Sadly, sometimes there's some of the slow payers that starts to snowball, and then now you've got, it just gets bigger and bigger. And unfortunately, it's that snowballing that happens a lot in construction. It's 1, 2, 3, all the things piled on top, which ultimately create your cash flow problems. All right, so a lot of times cash flow does start with your billing structure. It's not necessarily that you have bad customers. So again, this is about how you're billing your clients and how you're getting paid. All right, so let's talk about progress versus milestone billing. All right, we're going to talk about that in a little more depth. Okay, what is a progress bill? Very simply, you're billing based on a percent of the work that's complete. You're 25% complete, 33% complete, right? It's as far as you've gotten in the project. It tends to be common in some of the longer projects and sometimes the more complex projects. And it will help you in some cases kind of start to align your cash coming in with your costs going out. So again, if you've worked if you've completed 33% of the project, you're going to bill for that. And the idea is that you're attempting to kind of match up your cash going out with your cash going in. So what are some of kind of the pros about progress billing? In some cases, it can smooth out your cash flow. It's going to be less upfront cash strain for you. And in some cases, it's going to be easier to kind of fund that payroll that you're going to have in most cases every week, your headcount, as well as your materials. Okay. But the con is you have to be able to track the progress of your projects accurately. So if you're not really tracking your projects, it becomes very hard to do progress, doing that percent complete. If you don't know that you're actually 33% complete because you're not actually tracking your costs, then it makes very hard for you to kind of match up where you are, what you've spent, how far you've gotten in the project, and how much you've invoiced out. So again, it's progress billing, okay, percent complete, can be a great tool to use. But if you are not tracking your job costing right now, it becomes very hard for you to manage that. Now let's talk about milestone billing. So you're going to only bill at a specific project milestone, and you've determined what those things are in advance. In most cases, it's going to be in your contract. A lot of times this is going to be common in a fixed scope type of project or a smaller project. So again, it's going to be set on a specific milestone. Something's happening in the project at the time, you can bill. All right. So the pros, what makes this a good option for you? It is simple to understand. Um, for example, if you're building a house, you progress bill once the foundation has gone in, and then the progress bill once the framing is done. Like it's a very simple thing to kind of follow along with. We're not worried about percent complete or anything like that. So it tends to be a little bit simpler. And if you're not really tracking your costs, it might be a little bit easier for you to do it, to do a milestone versus percent complete. And again, it's going to be clear payment triggers, right? So simple to understand, clear payment. When we hit this thing, I invoice you. Some of the cons of it is you could have significant cash gaps between your milestones. Um, you might actually spend a lot before you even get paid dollar one. And sometimes delays can ultimately stall payments. So if something happens in those milestones and maybe you're, almost through the next milestone and you've spent a ton of money, but that final item prior to that next milestone being hit gets delayed. Now you've spent all this money and you still can't invoice yet because you've not actually hit that milestone. So again, now you've got a gap of time that you're really trying to cover. And that's where, again, you start to run into cash flow challenges. So kind of let's talk about why the difference matters between the two. Your milestone billing is going to, in some cases, create cash crunches for you. Now, if you're not tracking your job costing, for you, where's the trade-off, right? If you're not tracking your cost, milestone might be a better option. Um, Now, progress billing will help you to prevent any kind of front loading the expenses, right? So if you've gotten 10% done, you're billing out for 10%, right? And so, but you have to be tracking your expenses. And of course, at the end, for you, that really you have to choose the best one for your business. Because if you've chosen the wrong option, sometimes even a good job, a good project, a profitable project really turns into a cash flow headache for you because you just don't have the best billing option available. And again, it might be profitable, but it creates cash flow challenges for you. All right, so let's talk about some of the things, the tips, the things that you can do right away with regard to your billing, right? Whether it be progress or milestone. First one is you need to match your billing method to the job size and the timeline. Like what kind of project are you doing? So your longer projects, a project that's going to last you 8, 9, 10, 18 months, right? You are going to want some type of progress billing. In most cases, you're going to want to be billing out once a month, right? Some of those bigger projects, and that's typically how it works. What you've done over that last month is what you've billed out. You don't want to wait for a milestone to hit a milestone on a project that could go a 12 or 18 months, right? Creating significant cash flow challenges in your business. Don't fund these projects with your own cash, right? Billing should support the project. It should not drain the actual business. It should not drain everything else that you're doing. So again, you want to find the right type of billing that matches what you're doing. Your invoicing should always be consistent and clear. If you're invoicing, you invoice once a month. If that's what you're doing, you invoice by the 20th, the 25th of the month, whatever it is. You want to make sure you have a clear and consistent process. If you invoice here, maybe you invoice here, and maybe 3 weeks later you invoice here, again, that's not clear. It's not going to provide you with consistent cash flow. So being clear on your billing, being clear on your billing structure is really going to help you to get paid faster. You want to make sure you review your contracts before the job starts. You don't want to be going back to the project, once you're in it for a couple of months and now you realize that, you don't have the best option, right? Because you want to make sure you have your billing terms spelt out in that contract so that you know when you can invoice and so on. You want to protect your cash flow. You want to make sure that it doesn't, damage any of the projects that you're working on. You want to also make sure that you watch for your cash gaps early, right? If your billing lags behind, if now, I used to invoice once a month and I used to do, things here and there. And oh, I think we just lost our internet for a moment. Oh, sorry about that. I think we lost our internet for a moment. Go figure. So what were we talking about? Cash gaps. So you want to make sure you're watching for them early. If your billing lags behind your costs, like significantly behind your costs, you've got to adjust that. You've got to make sure that you are watching for that, right? What can cause your cash gaps? Those change orders, right? The change orders that start to lag behind and aren't staying along with their costs, right? So again, you want to make sure you have the right billing method that keeps your cash flow solid and consistent and just prevents any of the stress of one slow payer or one project getting stalled, right? You want to make sure that not every single one of your projects is a cash flow headache. So you want to find the best billing option for you out there so that you can keep that cash flow flowing as evenly as possible. We talk a lot about it on here. It's not always going to be flat, but you want to try to flatten it as much as possible. All right, so kind of to recap, it's your progress billing versus your milestone billing. It's not just a preference, it's going to be a strategy for your cash flow. It's really what is the best for the cash flow in your business and what's the best for the project that you're working on. All right. So next week we're going to talk again. This particular month we're talking about again, as always, cash flow, but really billing and collections. Let's find you some ways to collect that and maybe a little bit quicker. As always, we you can find us on the socials as at the Construction CPA. You can find me here every Friday morning. I look forward to seeing you here every week, and I'll see you next week.